Yesterday I did a short on the concept of trading and how certain advantage states will make it so that trading is favorable or unfavorable, even if the same number of players are going down on each side. And when I got into the meat of the video, I was getting a lot of feedback that it was too fast, that people were having trouble following and weren't quite getting the idea. So I've decided to do a follow-up video where I just slow it down, use pictures, and talk a little bit more slowly and explain more of what I'm doing as I'm going on. Shorts on YouTube have to be a minute or less, unlike on TikTok where you've got like a 10-minute limit or something like that. So sometimes I have to hustle to get it out in 1 minute, and I think this was just a little bit too much content to pack into that one video. So I'll take that one down, and this one will be the kind of official version of that. So first of all, the terminology. We're going to talk about trades. Let's say, you know, we're in a situation, numbers-wise, where we have 3 players up and they have 4 players up. We're saying that this is our team, the splatter shots. That would be a 3v4. The first number is going to be your team. The second number is going to be their team. That's what I mean when I'm going to be saying, you know, 3v4, 1v2, all of those kinds of things. So a trade is when one player goes down for one team, one player goes down for another team. Sometimes you can talk about, you know, sequences of trades as like maybe a 2-for-2 trade. Most of the time it's just like a 1-for-1. Because it's really common in this game for 2 people to start shooting each other at the same time and for them to both splat each other at the same time. What's also really common is this player wins the fight against this player, but then this player comes in and takes this player out while they're vulnerable, and that's called trading this player back. So that is also something I'm factoring into this discussion of trading. The point of the previous video is that not every trade, 1-for-1, is equal. It's not going to just mean that both teams get exactly the same amount out of it. Because what a trade really does is preserve the status quo, for, if anything, for longer. The status quo, you know, the way things currently are, might be that we are down 2 players. So if there is now a 1-for-1 trade, what happens is we remove this player from play, we remove this player from play, and now we are still, for a longer time than before, in this disadvantaged state. Because now we have to wait for this player to respawn back in before we have all 4. And they're going to be able to continue pushing the objective while they still have this 3v1 situation. And so we don't like that. Let's even say it's a 4v4 situation, but Team Tentatech has map control here. If we do a 1-for-1 trade, the status quo is still in favor of Team Tentatech because they have all of this map control. They control this much of the map, and Team Splattershot only really controls this much of the map. So they still like this. They're fine with those kinds of trades. In general, when you're on offense, you're going to like trades more than when you're on defense. Because again, being on offense is where you want to be. You don't want to be on defense. But it's actually even more than that. Because it's not just that it maintains the status quo. It's that whatever the status quo is, it's going to be more so. Here's what I mean. Let's say that we're in a 3v4 situation. This isn't ideal. This isn't where you'd prefer to be, but this is definitely still something that you can relatively easily change into a 3v3. If someone pushes up here too aggressively and we're able to double team them and get rid of them, now all of a sudden it's 3v3 again. And that's a relatively easy thing to happen because you have 3 players still that you can rotate around the map and set up those kinds of isolations. It's a lot more likely you're going to be able to get teamwork going the more players you have on the field. So you're going to be able to collapse on this player together if they go forward without the rest of their team, and it's more likely that you're going to be able to turn this 3v4 into a 3v3 and kind of get that neutral state back. Another thing is that if these 3 players have specials, I honestly give them the advantage. Like, these 3 players with Zukas against these 4 without any tri-strikes, Yeah, I give it to the Zuka players. So this isn't the end of the world. But let's say we trade down 1 for 1 repeatedly. Now it is a 0v1 situation. We are completely incapable of doing anything to control the objective. We can't stop this player from scoring. They're going to be able to just walk right up to the basket for free. And unlike these players here who can just super jump back into their teammate and immediately be back where they were before, we have to start all the way over from spawn. We are as far pushed back into our base as we're ever going to be as a team. So we don't like those trades. Those trades go from being a potentially winnable situation to being a situation where we are even further back than we were before, and we've given up all ability to score. The point here is that a 3v4 situation is preferable for us to that 0v1 situation, and an easy way to get from here to here is by doing 1 for 1 trades. So if we're the team of 3, we don't want 1 for 1 trades. We need clean fight wins. We need to go from 3v4 to 3v3. Otherwise, it is just not worth us fighting over this. So when we are in that situation where we have 1 down and the enemy team's trying to push in, instead of trying to fight right here, you know, even setting aside our odds of winning that fight, you know, even failing to take into consideration the fact that this is a harder fight for us to win because they have more players, we still don't want to take it, because if it goes even, if we just play the coin flip, we end up a little bit weaker than we were before. Because let's say we've got 3v4. For every one of these players, there's 1 1/3 of these players. All right, that's a weird way to think about it, but if we trade down to a 1v2, now for every one of these players, there's 2 of these players. Just proportionally speaking, there are more players that this one person has to pay attention to. You know, realistically, the way that's going to play out is if all 4 of these are just rushing. With these 3, this team of 3, one of these players might have to deal with 2 of them at once, but then the other fight over here, the 2v2, is kind of fair. And if this player can just skirmish and not go down and distract these 2, it's definitely a fight that could go even or even be won by the team of 3. But that's much more difficult to say about the 1v2, because at this point, there's nobody else to help you. You're just getting flanked by 2, and you have to deal with both players at the same time. Every member who's alive on this team, all 1 of them, has to deal with 2 players at once. So the more of those 1 for 1 trades that we create, the more the state the game is currently in is going to continue for. And the more whoever has an advantage is going to have the advantage. Those trades favor the team that likes the way that things currently are. So factor that into your decision-making process for when you're deciding whether you want to take a fight, for doing the risk-reward analysis.